You had a flip phone open. You had a flip phone when I met you, I think.
Oh, yeah. But that deer literally was living in a little corner of this cut and just living off of what was growing in that cut.
Not only did I shoot all 4 broadheads that were in my quiver at that bird, I had to walk over and pick arrows up and chase it down and shoot it there because I never touched it once with one of those arrows.
I feel so weak as a hunter.
There again, we've got to realize that in the end, none of this matters. I can't take any of it with me.
Welcome to the Before the Echo podcast. We're either going to be talking about God or deer hunting. I hope you enjoy it. If you guys are in the market for some new camo, maybe you're worried about just sweating too much in the early season here at the velvet hunt, go over to ASIO gear and get you some of their early season stuff. Right now is a good time to get this stuff ordered. You don't got much time before we start climbing trees and deer hunting, and I absolutely love the ASIO camo pattern for setting up in a tree. And they also make just good quality gear that's going to last with a lifetime warranty if it doesn't. So you don't really have much to worry about. And if you go over to their website and use the code ECHO15 at checkout, you save another 15% off everything on their website. So visit ASIOgear.com, get you some new hunting camo. Man, I have something pretty cool to share with you guys. I'm going on a couple rifle hunts this year, and I just got a new scope that I'm super impressed with, and it's a new scope from Hawke Optics. It's their new Endurance 30 rifle scope lineup, and it's just built for serious hunters that need a good scope that is still an affordable option. It offers like crystal clear glass. I'm real impressed with it. Has a super wide field of view, so target acquisition is really easy, and it just seems real rugged. It has 3 levels of fiber optic illumination, which is motion activated. So you're not running a battery out all the time, but is actually motion activated. Whenever the rifle is moving, it will turn on. When it's laying in your gun safe, it's turned off. This is real durable 30 millimeter tube. It's built for performance whenever you need it to count the most. So if you guys are in the market for a new rifle scope, go over to hawkeoptics.com and use the code BTE, and that'll save you 15% on their website. You can also go to any of their dealers that they have. They're all over the country. It's a good product at an affordable price with a great warranty. hawkeoptics.com. Look, guys, broadheads are important, and I have just fallen in love with these razor broadheads that I've been using the last few years. If you're a fixed blade kind of guy, I don't think you can go wrong with the razor head. They just came out with a new 150 grain wide cut double bevel head that's just going to be an awesome shooter. I've been tuning them out here out of my compound bow. Didn't really take much effort to tune them at all. They flew great. That vented head just flies like a dart. So if you guys are in the market for a new broadhead, look into razor broadheads. They got single bevel heads up to from 125 up to 300 grains, and then they have the new wide cut 150 grain double bevel. Visit razorbroadheads.com, use code BTE, and you save 20% off. All right, one more, guys. Listen, things are shaking right now in the hunting world. Lots of new stuff coming out before season, lots of good stuff. And what do you know? Latitude Outdoors came out with the Method 3 saddle. You know, I didn't really think I would like the thing, to be honest with you. They sent me one, and I'm like, man, you can't beat that Lone Star saddle. I like that thing a lot. It did it, man. It's more comfortable, I think, than the Lone Star if you want a 2-panel saddle. And it's just... it's not like any other 2-panel saddle on the market. It's so easy to use. Sometimes some 2-panel saddles can be a little bit confusing, get all tangled up. Not this thing. It's perfect. So if you guys need a new saddle, I'd go look over there at the new Method. They also have more affordable options for you in the Maverick. And if you're a single-panel saddle guy, the Lone Star's unbelievable. It's what I used last year. They also have a new platform coming out, the Profile XL. That thing is in the mail right now as we speak, so I'll let you know if I like that. But if you go to latitudeoutdoors.com and code BTE, it'll save you 15% off of anything on their website that isn't on sale. If you need any more gear, make sure you use these promo codes to save you a little bit of money. Hey, everybody.
What do you know?
Welcome to the show. we got a whole bunch of special guests tonight. You can see to my it's my left here. I don't know what it is for them on YouTube world, but Maddie's joining us tonight. My wife Maddie, and then we have Karen and David Holder from Raised Hunting is on here.
Oh, thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for coming on, guys. Before we started, I was gonna say, like, YouTube, your title and your thumbnail and all that's real important. And I could have made this podcast about how to kill a big giant buck with David Holder or something like that, and it probably would have done better. But I feel like our topic tonight is like heads and tails more important than something like that. So that's kind of why I had you guys on here. You guys are known for killing big giant deer. But I think what I'm most impressed of is the family aspect that you guys have kind of held together over all these years.
Well, that's cool. Yeah. I mean, to be honest, we never got into this to kill big deer. That wasn't like now living in Iowa. Well, I can't say that there's not part of me that was like, well, that's a good place to live so that we could kill a big deer. But as far as doing anything in the outdoor industry, really, it kind of fell on us. It wasn't something that we were seeking, either one of us. And so what ended up happening is I ended up as a pro staffer for Primos at one time. I didn't even know what that was. When they approached me and said, and this was because we lived in Montana and I was elk hunting at the time, that's where it all started. And so that kind of got my foot in the door. And once that got my foot in the door, I just felt like hunting had been a big part of my life already. And Karen was coming along and she was beginning to get into it and things like that. We don't have kids at that time. But immediately I was like, okay, there's something big enough here that I feel like I got to give back, and I wanted to I don't want to say I want to make a difference, because you can make a difference and it be the wrong difference. I wanted to make a difference in a positive way with hunting. I really wanted to. And at the time, and it still goes on today, but hunting gets a bad rap a lot of times. You see someone does something wrong, whether, and most of the time in my case, or what I view it as, is they're not truly hunters that are giving us the bad rap. They're thief, or they're doing something wrong that they should, a poacher, he's not a hunter, he's a poacher, period. And so we wanted to show people outside of hunting that hunting's a good thing, that not only can it be the best conservation tool this planet has ever seen, but it can be something that it can be worked into your life, and it can make a difference in your family's life, a positive difference. And that was really the whole premise behind. And then there's a love for it that's been there since I was a little kid. And like I said, Karen, it's not that she wasn't doing it, but she maybe wasn't doing it to the magnitude of what I was early on, so.
Yeah. When did you come up with the idea of raised hunting then, guys?
Well,
the title, or the name Raised Hunting, was created after we had built a regional television show that was a disaster. Absolutely horrible. And that's also what helped give us purpose, because David had retired from the fire department. He's a previous fireman and was looking for the next thing to do. And so we had talked about, I've always been impressed with the way he communicates with animals. And what I mean by that is, when we're elk hunting or we're deer hunting or whatever it is, he just has this understanding that is not normal. And from what I've seen it across the industry, but he just has this sense of what the animals are wanting to do, where they're trying to go, why they're doing it, what they're saying. So with his calling, it's not what he's saying, it's when he's saying it. Mm-hmm. And so he just has this feel. And so I was encouraging him to do something with that, now that he had left the fire department and was looking for a new path. And we had considered opening an archery shop. And so when we looked at doing the archery shop, we had thought we would name it Above the Rest, because an arrow sits above a rest. Mm-hmm. We just thought that was kind of a catchy name for an archery shop. Well, when we decided that wasn't where we wanted to go, we thought, well, let's build a television show that's for educational purposes. And we'd have a website with it as well. And we can just help educate people on how they can hunt, successfully, or, give them tips, whatever we can do to help them. And so we named it Above the Rest. And it was a regional show out west. So I think it was Montana, Idaho, Oregon, Washington.
3 states. It was
And I think we had a Facebook page that we had created, and within a whole year, we only had barely 1,000 likes, right?
I don't know. It was horrible. I mean, just to paint a bad pic. I mean, and I'm not picking on the guy because he's probably a multimillionaire, but I hired an editor because I didn't know how to edit. I tried to do it, couldn't do it. And so anyhow, I hired this guy. Well, he didn't know. He sends me video back, and I'm like, what the heck is he doing here? I don't even understand what videos he used here. He didn't know the difference between a turkey call and an elk call. That's how bad, And so anyhow, we did what we could to fulfill all of the obligations, but immediately I was like, okay, this is not working. What was going on though is in the industry, the TV hunting shows had been done. And everyone had seen them, and I felt like even
in the same way.
Yeah, the same
format. It's kind of like you could predict what was happening.
Yeah. You're ones that we all grew up with, like Monster Bucks and The Truth and all those. I mean, they're great, but they were all, you knew what was going to happen at the end of the 4-minute segment.
You knew you could turn it on, see where they're going hunting, and then come back in 17 minutes and catch the kill.
Yeah.
So Karen made the comment to me one day, if you're going to do this, it has to be completely different. And I was like, well, what do you mean? She said, it just has to be different. And what had started us down this path, Josh, was that I had started filming my boys because now they're little, right? They're being born. Mm-hmm. And so I started filming them shooting a bow at 2 years old. I'm teaching them how to shoot their bow and stuff like that. And I was always intrigued with a camera as far as filming hunts. We filmed our first whitetail kill in 1992, me and a buddy of mine. And so anyhow, so as this progressed, but not good cameras. I mean, I'm talking like I'm dating myself, but I wasn't in the beta series, the big ones, but like 8mm tapes, you know, and to the point where you would film something and then you didn't have the money to keep filming. So you'd just rewind it and film over it, until you got exactly what you wanted, that kind of stuff. So anyhow, as I start to develop this, I start putting aside video that we've made. And then next thing I know, the boys are like 10 and Warren's probably 10 or 12 when all this was going on with Above the Rest. And so that would have put Easton at like 5 or 6. And now I've been doing this. I've been filming these hunts now for 10 years, let's say 15 years, something like that. And so one day I had Warren, I said, hey, do me a favor. I want you to go in and I want you to look at all of our footage and tell me how many kills do we have on tape? Because what had happened was I actually killed a pretty good bull on video with just me and a buddy out hunting, and I shoot this bull. And because I'm a pro staffer, the Primos team had seen the piece of video and we're like, hey, could we use that? And I was like, sure. They're like, you going to put it on anything? I was like, no. I mean, I had all these things that I just had sitting they're even on a computer at the time. They were just on a hard drive.
Yeah.
And so they said they'd like to use it. So that told me, I'm like, well, wait a minute. If they're going to use this on national television, maybe we're doing a pretty good job at how we're filming this stuff. So then I had Warren, I said, hey, Warren, go look and see how many kills we have. So he sits down. I'm expecting for him to come back and say, Dad, you got 15 turkey kills and 6 whitetail kills. He comes back and he has this list and he's like, okay, Dad, I counted stuff that wasn't a kill, but you got really close, and I was like, okay. He says, you have 148. I was like, 148? What are you talking? No way. So I sit down with him and we start looking at it. He's like, and sure enough, we had compiled this big, now that's Karen.
Library.
Karen had shot some, I had shot some, she'd filmed me, I filmed her. So now we're looking at it, and then I'm still hearing her in the back of my mind telling me it's got to be different. It's got to be different. And
if I can interrupt, what my thought there was, there has to be a purpose.
Absolutely.
you can't, how do I word it? Killing 5 or 6 deer in a year or more, I'm not going to eat all of those.
Yeah.
So there's got to be a purpose. Why are we doing this? Why are we? And so that's where the stories started to come in, to where it was like, okay, we need to be able to take the stories and the wins and losses and the disappointments and the victories, whatever it is, and tie it with that kill and make a story out of it so that it's purposeful. And also glorifying the Lord, anyway, just to me, just being in the woods itself is enough. I mean, that's, the forest comes to life and you get to see what God created. And so that's where I was thinking. That was my mindset.
So she gives me this task, right? I got to create something that's completely different.
Yeah.
And like I said, the first shot at it was a total failure. In the process, we moved to Iowa. Her job brought us here to Iowa, not whitetail deer. But it didn't hurt. I mean, I was glad that we were moving there because we were going to be able to own our own piece of ground. And you would be able to hopefully walk out the door and go hunting, that kind of thing. And so that's what happened. Well, we get here, we get settled. And then I told her, I said, I'm going to make one more run at this. But I want to try to find the right editor. And so I went out and I started shopping, looking for editors, because now in my head, what she just described, I was thinking like that, right? I'm thinking what I had noticed was that raising your kids, and I don't care who's listening out there in YouTube land or podcast land or whatever, if you've got kids, whatever you do as adults, meaning for fun or whether you do what you do for a living, your kids are watching that stuff. They're probably learning more from that than they are the intentional days you go out to try to teach them something. And so I was like, I didn't realize it, but my boys have been raised with hunting. Every analogy was, okay, if you were sitting in a deer stand, would you have patience to stay there long enough? Then go back and sit down and figure out that problem. If you were going to go, if you saw a big deer on the other side of the fence, would you shoot across the fence? Or would on the playground, if she tells you not to go there and the teacher's serious, that means you don't go over there, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And so I started noticing those commonalities were coming out. Anyone else who's got a daughter in ballet, they got someone playing the piano or whatever, you're going to do that. Whether you realize it or not, that's going to come out. So when I explained this to these few editors that I now had singled out, that I have this idea and I'm sitting on this 10-year compilation of footage that I want to try to show how you raise a kid in the family, raise a kid or kids or the whole family coming together and talking about hunting. This is what I'm thinking, but I don't know how to do it. And I ran into a guy that from one guy met me or introduced me to another guy. And then we met. And then next thing I know, I'm showing Karen a piece of footage. I'm like, okay, this guy, and this is crazy, but the piece of footage that he had that sold us, that he's the one that needs to put this together, was a dog. He had this footage, just like a 2-3 minute reel, that he had put together of the footage that he had. And it was duck hunting is what it was. And this dog, I'll never forget it. The dog's licking his lips.
In slow motion.
Yeah.
But this little 3-minute reel that he showed me told a story without anybody saying a word.
Yeah.
And I was
Man.
like,
And you could feel it. I mean, that
absolutely.
was probably the biggest thing, was that there was emotion behind that clip.
Some people with cameras are just artists with them. Like there's no other way of saying it. Like they can see things that other people can't with a camera and tell a story with it without saying a word during the shot,
So that gets us to introduction is Modern Legacy Productions is who produced the show the first 6 years. And I'm working with Adam Jordison, who is the leader of that, or the head guy. And what we ended up doing was sitting down, taking the footage. We figured out what we were going to do, but we didn't know how exactly to tell the story. And so we came back to all of us trying to do some narration. Karen did some, I did some, Warren, Easton each did some. And I'm like, this is not very good. We're going down. we're going right down the above the rest thing again here. But Adam says to me, yours is good. You're telling a different kind of story. And so he said, let's just try you doing the whole thing. And so we did that. Well, the first one comes out and he calls us and he says, hey, I want you guys to watch this. And so we, he spent 3 months, two to 3 months putting together to build a 4-minute reel that we were going to show people. And he gets this 4-minute reel done. ATA is right around the corner. He has me watch this reel and I'm like, dude, this is crazy. I can't even believe this is my family. He just portrayed us in a way that I had never seen on outdoor television. Mm-hmm. So I take that DVD at the time to ATA and I don't have anyone in particular to show it to, but I'm thinking I'll find a couple people. Well, there's a gentleman that worked for Realtree named Scott. And I went down and saw him and I said, hey, Scott, you probably get hit up with this kind of thing all the time, but we're thinking about putting together something about outdoor television. Don't have a name for anything. I just want you to watch this if you got 3 minutes. And he was like, sure. He popped it in. I start playing it. He makes it through about a minute. And he says, hey, can you pause that for a second? And I said, sure. And he says, give me just a minute. And he walked out. I'm thinking, well, that was a total bust, right?
Yeah.
I keep his attention for a full minute. And when he comes back in, he has Bill Jordan, David Blanton, a couple other guys. I don't know who they are. They all come in, congregate around the computer. And he says, hey, can you go back to the beginning and hit play? And I said, sure. So I hit play and they watch this 4-minute clip. And then Bill Jordan asked me, he's like, who are you and what are you doing with this? And I said, I told him who I was. I said, I'm a pro staffer for Primos. He says, have they seen it? I said, yeah, they've seen it. He says, well, where are you going to go with this? And I said, well, I told him what our intentions were. And he said, well, when you decide that you got a network and what you're going to do, let us know. We'd like to work with you. So I didn't show it to anyone else because now I felt like, well, we've got it.
Yeah.
And like Karen said, that the God thing just kind of comes in. So I'm trying to fly home from that ATA and I get grounded in Denver. I'm stuck there because of snow. And I sit down because I'm eating dinner at the bar at the hotel where I'm going to stay. And just so happened, the guy sitting next to me, I said, hey, how are you today? His name, I can't remember his first, Jake Gustafson. Yeah. And he says he works for the Outdoor Channel.
No kidding.
Really? And I was like, well, how coincidental. I just happen to have this DVD in my pocket, So I tell him, I know you get hit up with this kind of stuff all the time, but I would like to show you this. He says, sure, I'll take a look at it.
I think you showed it to him right there at the bar.
I can't remember whether I did. I think I did. I think I at least showed him a piece of it. And he said, okay. And then I sent it to him. Well, the next morning, before I even get on the plane, he texts me and says, can I show this to my bosses? And I was like, well, no, that's not what I was after here, And so sure enough, it was only a few days, like 4 or 5 days, because I was, I'm on pins and needles. I'm telling Karen, I met this guy, I gave it to him. He's supposedly going to show it to someone. Should I call and follow up or whatever? And the phone rings one day, and it's at the time, Jeff Wayne was the gatekeeper basically for the Outdoor Channel. And he says, hey, we'd like to talk to you about, we've seen people do what you did and build a 4-minute reel, but can you do this for 22.5 minutes? And I said, well, I think so. I believe you can. And I said, and he says, and then how are you going to come up with that many ideas? How many, because you got to build 13 episodes at a minimum or 26, depending on how much you air. And I'm talking to Karen. I'm like, every time our kids get in trouble, every time they do something right or wrong, it's another episode. I'm like, that's no problem. So anyhow, that's where it kind of all started. And so a few months later, we were able to get the first finished version to them. They looked at it and said that we would like to put this on the Outdoor Channel. And we were like, all right, well, then tell me how I pay for that, or do you guys pay me? And that's when I learned how the industry works.
Yeah.
So the next big phone call was Shields became our title sponsor. Mm-hmm. And once that happened, we were on the road to 10 years of television on the Outdoor Channel.
Nice.
And so that's how that came to be. So yeah, if you ever question whether there's a God around, he may be in the Denver airport. You just don't know.
That's right. Yeah. I think your guys' show was the first show that you ever showed any interest in as far as a hunting show.
Yeah, probably just, yeah. Obviously, we used to just watch whatever was on, and then that was one I was like, I don't mind this one.
Yeah, and she would actually sit down and like pay attention to it with me, you know, instead of just me watching Realtree Road Trips or something. No, you know, that was my thing back in the day until, you know, that was that. Yeah, you guys, what you did was not unlike Michael Waddell and Realtree Road Trips. Like it was something that nobody else was doing, and it just that's what people crave usually, you know. Yeah. Just like Monster Bucks was like nobody else was doing that when that started, you know.
It was intentional to capture women. Because, you know, I was, again, when we talked about this needed to be different, I said, it'd be nice, you know, I would sit on the couch and he's watching outdoor television and I'd read my book. Yeah. Totally not paying attention at all. And I said, it'd be nice if we could capture the ladies' attention. And so we're going to need to change this somehow. I give David all these challenges and then I just go somewhere else and do something else.
Karen is like the brains behind all this.
Well, I was going to comment. I'm like, you hear how successful you guys are, but how much pushing it took from having a good woman behind you, I think, to make that such a success. There's an important aspect to that. But I say with the getting women in, at least I was young, but still just seeing like the kids involved in it. And like you said, the lessons behind, like how you would always connect it to some kind of lesson. And I'm like that now, even looking back as a parent, like that's what I think of trying to parent my own kids. You know, I'm like, okay, how can I think about this in terms that he's going to understand and want to connect to? And so I like that. Even then I found that interesting.
Yeah. Well, I just want to clarify, Josh, you're probably like me. You probably wear the pants in your family. Yeah. The only problem is they tell us which ones to put on.
That's right. Yeah, that's pretty accurate.
But honestly, that was a huge gauge for us when the show was airing, was how many comments we got from people that said, my wife does not watch outdoor. Well, the other one was, every time I watch your episode, I'm in tears.
Yeah.
I was like, well, that's not the intent. I mean, that really wasn't the intention, other than what we did want to do was we wanted to bring what hunting felt like, what that emotional connection was. And that's something that I can say that without a doubt, whether you get awards through the Outdoor Channel or whatever, we did that. We did that very, very well. And that was a combination of Adam Jordison from Modern Legacy and then myself sitting down and then the entire family being a part of it. And I mean, that's the only way we could have pulled that off.
Yeah.
Well, and it shows that, like you were saying earlier, how people get this bad vision of hunters because they're seeing kind of the bad side of it, but to portray no, we actually love these animals. Like, I know we're killing them, but we love them. And kind of to show that side of it is like, that's important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. Yep.
I kind of want to transition into kids a little bit because I feel like there's this problem lingering in the hunting world that maybe we're not seeing quite yet. But like, I think, and I could be wrong, I'd like to hear what you guys think, but like, David, your guys' generation, like you are kind of, to me, like the core right now of the hunting world. And I'm really concerned in another 25, 30 years, what hunting is going to look like as far as a population, because I'm going to be in your position. And like, I just don't, like when I'm out and about hunting, I don't see as many people that are younger than me than I see that are older than me, kind of thing. You know, I was born in 1991, so I was like raised on the edge of that technology boom to where like later on in my life, got a cell phone when I was, 20 or whatever, and all that. So I was raised without all that technology. What do you guys see right now as far as, people our age? We have two sons as well. One's going to be 2 in October and one's going to be 6 in October. So like, what do you see right now with like young people like me raising kids? What do you see us do wrong with getting kids into hunting so that we have people that are still going to hunt in 50 years?
Or the outdoors in general.
Yeah.
You want to go first? Or
My answer will probably be shorter.
That was a jab if you didn't know.
Oh, yeah, that's funny.
Not really. So I think that, again, we have to be intentional about taking them out, getting them outside and having them have a good experience. Because I mean, with technology today, there's that rush. Even if they're 2 years old, they're still seeing bright lights and they're seeing things that make them happy or feel good or whatever. And it's easy. And it's easy for the parents too, because you give the kid an iPad or something and they're quiet for a while mom and dad can do something. So when we're taking them out hunting, I think we need to make sure that it's fun and they're engaged and they're doing things that give them that dopamine rush, basically, whether it's pointing out the deer or seeing rabbits or turkeys, or trying to have some kind of a way to make it really fun for them, and being intentional about going and doing it. I mean, with how busy life is when you have careers and young kids and being a husband and a wife and all of that, it's just, you're wearing so many hats, and sometimes it can get really hard to go out. And I think you just got to be really intentional about doing it and making it fun and making them see the appreciation of it, having some victories, having some little successes.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, kind of where Karen's going, and I think that's where, like, you talk about my generation and the core of it. We didn't all deer hunt, or we didn't all big game hunt. There was also squirrel hunting. There was fishing. There was pond fishing. There was walking creeks to fish for trout. There was dove hunting. All little things that led to the big thing. Yeah. I mean, I can't tell you, like the smell of gunpowder, I always think of dove hunting now, because I grew up where we were all around a cornfield, and it's something where everyone could talk and you could have fun. And the kids that were too young to shoot, they could be running and grabbing doves or whatever, or someone's got their dog there that's horrible at finding the doves, And so much of that, again, it wasn't intentional necessarily. Someone just took you along and it was dripping on you and you didn't know it. And next thing you know, because her and I grew up inside the beltway of Washington, D.C. And all I could crave was getting out of there, because on the weekends with my uncles and my brother and my dad, and we would go fishing, or someone would take me hunting, and archery hunting really didn't start for me till I was like 16 or 17. But they had already instilled the desire for the outdoors in me, whether they realized it or not. And I'm not saying some of them were the best role models either back then. They were doing things, drinking and carrying on, but they at least got me out there. And I was like, okay, this is, I'm the kid in the back of the truck or back of the car driving down the road and saw a deer, and I'm freaking out. We got to turn around. We got to turn around, because you didn't see them back then like that where we live. Yeah. And so that is something that I would say that, and I think you guys heard me say a little bit ago, getting a bow in my boys' hands at 2 years old. No, it wasn't a compound bow. I wasn't fletching arrows for them and making them, okay, you got to hit the target. It was just a ton of fun. I mean, we had a deer target that had the goiter where you've sprayed it with foam to fill it back in. It looks horrible. And what I did was I went to Walmart, bought a suction cup bow, but I took one of my strings off of my old bow, tied it onto there so he could shoot one of my arrows, so it was heavier and it would stick in the target.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it had everything cut down. But what it did was it made him feel like he was getting to be like dad.
Yeah.
And he could see the result of it. So we did lots of things I guess Karen, when she said that a minute ago, she talked about making it fun. The moment that a dad takes his son or daughter hunting, or anyone new for that minute, put the ego aside about trying to get something accomplished. That's not what it's about today. Today, it's about, this is going to be fun. We're going to make a little noise in the ground blind. Maybe we're climbing up in a tree stand, but we're going to be making noise. They're going to be moving around and stuff like that. Make sure you got snacks. Make sure it's not a crappy day, or reschedule. And then one of the greatest things that I go back to my memory, what sealed the deal kind of for me, was when my brother, because he was 8 years older than me, or my dad, or whoever it was, would come and take me out of school to go hunting.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
so David's advocating you take your kids out of school.
No, yeah, thank you, David, because I can already see my wife, like, she's like, well, he can only miss 10 days. I'm like, yeah, that 10 days, that's what we can miss 10. Not just
that was always a discussion on us. I'm like, hold on a second. What
well,
do you mean
but
they get
her mind was let's make sure we don't miss any days. My mind was like, we can miss 10, not get in trouble.
Now, see, the way I do that math, that means I only need them for the afternoons. So that means probably 20 afternoons.
20,
Yeah.
So, but no, my point is that, again, it wasn't the hunting, it was getting to go, and then someone took the time to come get me, and
it made it special.
Absolutely. I mean, to me, growing up as a kid, the day when you put on a flannel shirt, that meant you were going hunting or fishing. It was like, you had this whole philosophy in your head that that's what you were getting to do. And without knowing it, I probably was doing that with my boys. And then Warren, there was no doubt he was going to be a hunter from the time he was a little kid. I mean, he just took to it right away. Easton, not so much. Easton got involved in a lot more sports and things like that. So he kind of steered the other direction. We get a lot of calls still today from people that say, my son or daughter's not going very much, or they're getting into this or that. What would you suggest? My suggestion is back off a little bit, and let them find it, but keep doing those outdoor things, and before you know it, you'll have your kids got to want to go with you. It's got to be fun. And so I felt like, however well Karen and I did it, we made it where we did a lot of afternoons too, just driving around looking for deer in a pickup truck. And
well, and this is kind of funny. David loves chocolate chip cookies.
Same.
So, I know,
doesn't everybody?
Yeah. So we would go look for deer, or even when we went hunting, there was a specific store that made these really good, big, soft chocolate chip cookies. And every time we went looking for deer, we would stop and get a cookie.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, even just that, they remember that to this day. And if they're in that area, they'll stop and get a cookie.
Mm-hmm.
So just little things like that kind of make it a tradition and something that they can expect and look forward to. And
so don't give up on the generator. I think that there's more out there than you think. And I'm hoping that we're going to see kind of a cyclical thing, where it comes back around, it's definitely it's always going to get harder, meaning the public lands and the private properties get harder and harder to come by. But those families that are still dedicated to the outdoors, still love the outdoors, they'll find a way. Because I could point at the generation before me and say, we were seeing the same thing, it was dwindling then, but it's not going to go away, hopefully. And especially now, because you do have so much, I feel like the kids got a better opportunity to learn, because you do have the YouTubes and the podcasts and things like that.
That's true.
They can figure it out really quickly, and it will be out there all the time.
Do you think we start the kids too early on success nowadays?
On success, yes.
Okay.
Or I think what has happened, that's the downside of what I just mentioned, meaning the social media thing and everything. All we see is the big bucks. Mm-hmm. All we see is the multiple kills or whatever, there's what we don't show. And you would always explain this to people when we were building our episodes. I know it looks like we're successful all the time, but it really takes about 5 days for us to acquire 5 minutes of footage.
Mm-hmm.
That's how much work went into what we were doing. And so I don't want anyone to think that it just happens overnight, and that, but the reality is, with the internet, with YouTube, with all the places that it's immediate, most of the time everyone's seen something successful, And so they think that everyone's going to kill a 190-inch deer. I mean, I can't tell you how many kids I know now that, like they're 12 and they're saying, well, I'm not going to shoot that deer. I'll let him go till he's 5 years old. And
Yeah.
I'm as guilty as anyone. I've had to try to explain to my boys, we don't need to do that. When you're starting out, shoot a spike, shoot a doe, shoot a button buck. No, I'm not advocating that we want to go out and kill all these button bucks. And I try not to do that. And we try to manage them. But at the same time, if a little kid has never killed a deer and it walks out and that kid is shaking like a leaf and this is going to be that moment, I'm not taking that away.
Yeah.
And now that also goes for, and this one's a little harder on my boys, 190-inch deer walks out. I'm not going to tell them they can't shoot that one either. That we're not holding that. I hope that doesn't happen for the kid's sake, because I do feel like when a kid is introduced to something of that, they don't even understand, number one, what just happened. They just killed a deer of a lifetime.
Right.
And it's hard to ever do it again. You know?
Yeah.
So then where do they go?
Yeah. Yeah. I get worried with at least with our boys, like, or the one that's almost 2, he doesn't know any better, but
he loves his little longbow though.
Yeah, he does. He's good at shooting it too.
Yeah,
but,
he's good.
Our 6-year-old, and I think it's not just him. I think it's every kid, but like, if you give them the choice of, hey, do you want to go play a game on a tablet or do you want to go outside and shoot your bow? It's like, you kind of got to pull them outside sometimes, which we didn't, we just didn't have as many distractions as when we were younger.
Well, and I think it gets harder the older. Like when he was younger, it wasn't quite like that. It's definitely as they get older, the struggle is. Yeah.
But you have to, I guess as a dad, you got to be like, no, I kind of know what's best for you right now. You're 5, you don't need to be like, let's go and shoot your bow. Also though, like, I don't know, I have this hard time with the concept of like bringing a tablet or my phone or whatever and letting them use that while we're out in the, sitting in a ground blind or in a shooting house or something, and then that's the experience they have. Is like, well, I'll just sit here and play on this until my dad tells me there's a deer out there to shoot. Like, I don't know, I worry about that too. So that's kind of where I'm like trying to figure out when is the right age to take my sons with me on a serious deer hunt. Cause I'll be honest with you, there's probably going to be kids in his class this year that kill a deer, like, cause their dad, has a food plot with a box blind on it that they can, shoot one with a rifle during.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I guess maybe we were slightly fortunate because the boys grew up in Montana. That's where we had moved to when they were born. And I didn't like it, but maybe it was the right thing. Was Montana's law was they could not big game hunt until they were 12.
Yeah.
But however, when Warren and Easton were both around 9 or 10 years old, Warren's the one I remember most. This kid was a killer with a bow. As far as he could hit at like 30, 40 yards, he was dead on even at 10 years old. So I went to the state and said, hey, I'd like to take my son to another state to go bow hunting. Nebraska did not have a age requirement. And he was ready. He was pulling 40 pounds. I was like, I think he could kill a turkey with his bow. So I'd like to take him over there. Well, he didn't have hunter ed. So what they ended up telling me was they would not let him come in and take hunter ed. If I wanted to take him to another state, then I should take him to their hunter ed course. And I was like, well, this is stupid. These kids are going to be already doing other things if we don't get them involved earlier than 12 years old.
Right.
Since then, Montana has changed their laws a little bit and the kids are getting to hunt a little earlier. But my point, I guess, with that is that even when they couldn't hunt, they were there, and where I guess maybe I kind of used them as a kind of a crutch. I put them behind the camera so they had something to do. They were filming and we were talking, and then it was always a game. It was always a what can we see? What can we find? Do you hear this? Do you smell that? Let's go look for tracks. Maybe we're just in the wrong spot. So like. When you sit there for an hour and a half and a kid hasn't seen something, I probably, and it's 30 minutes before dark, but they've lost interest. You get out and you go see what you can come up with, and just like I said, people may have looked at me back then, and even my boys have said, I can't remember why we did that, Dad. We did some stupid things as far as hunting goes.
Yeah.
They didn't realize we were doing that because I didn't want to lose their interest.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I didn't want to lose them to come back the next time.
Right.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, I took a kid, I don't know, it was last year before, but, we're sitting up there and it hadn't even got light yet. Like we was in the morning, and he was, he's like, "Okay, can I have your phone?" And I'm like, "Well, what for?" He's like, "Well, I usually play games while I'm up here." And I was like, I don't have any games on my phone, And he's like, "Well, Dad, they always let me just play games." And I'm like, "Well, sorry, man. Like, look around, look for something." Or, I tried to, like you said, play a game with him or try to count something or whatever the case may be. And it's like, 20 minutes after daylight, he was like done with it. And I'm like, well, all right, I didn't want to, sit there and force him to be up there. So I get worried about that. Like, man, I want to find that sweet spot to where they have the,
where you're pushing them a little bit,
Yeah.
but they're still gonna, like, you're not gonna push them too far to where they're like, I never want to do that again.
Yeah.
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 I think part of it might be finding the part, like you said, you would stick the kids behind the camera or whatever.
Mhm.
Maybe that's because
that's
that's
what I
what they
did.
were showing interest in. And that may just be what the part they take too. So
Yeah. Huck wants a squirrel dog. Our oldest is named Huck. So we're getting a squirrel dog at the end of this month.
he seems more interested in like small game hunting right now.
Yeah.
And he really took a liking to fishing this year.
Yeah.
As long as it wasn't too hot, which we had a hot spell where it wasn't fun to fish, but
Yeah.
It sounds like he's going to be just fine. I mean,
Yeah.
just keep doing what you're doing, but I would tell you, like, even in the mornings, we didn't go in the dark typically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We wait so that, because a kid's never going to tell you if they're really nervous or really scared, unless they're really scared, then they'll be like, okay,
Yeah.
I don't like this. But, we'd wait and walk in the daylight a little bit. Then that way, maybe we'd even see a deer on the way. I can't tell you how many spikes that I stalked for my kid. I'd see a spike buck and I was like, all right, let's see if we can get close to him. I didn't have any intentions of shooting it, but he didn't know that. Right.
Yeah.
And we were doing everything we could. And I kept telling him, we need to get closer. He's like, Dad, he's only like 12 yards away. You can hit him from here, And I'm like, I need to get closer until he finally ran off.
Right.
So, but just, I guess Karen will tell you not only that I talk a lot, but that I still have that mentality of getting down on a kid's level. And I've always been able to do that. And I love it. I love being able to understand where they're coming from and hopefully keep them interested. And that's where Raised at Full Draw has come from, that we have the camp where we bring 50 kids in for 4 days and 3 nights. And those kids are all shooting bows. And I know we've never had a kid leave because they didn't like what they were doing or they lost interest. And we take their phones from them the first day that they get there.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
So it's a fun deal. Yeah.
What time of the year do you guys do that?
So the camps are now in 7 states, 9 camps in 7 states. So we start early June, and the last one was probably be wrapping up about now, because kids got to get ready to go back to school. But we're in Iowa, Missouri, North Dakota, Montana, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania.
Nice.
So, and there's multiple camps out there. And like I said, they're all over a Thursday to a Sunday. And the kids got to be anywhere from 12 to 17. But it's a fun deal. It really is. I mean, and it's something that I wish there had been when I was a kid. I would have been there every year.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And you guys have you guys did a good job of including your kids in like the business side of it too. I mean, you guys have a lot of stuff going on, with your, you got products, you got your videos, you got, your
Website,
camp.
camp.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
We kind of had to. I mean,
Yeah.
they
Diversify.
were.
yeah.
Well, diversify as far as business is concerned, but also the kids, we needed their help.
Yeah.
It's quite frankly. I mean,
Yeah. Running a camera,
You
it's
have
tough
to
to
have
film
it.
yourself all the time.
Yeah.
So
Cheap labor.
yeah.
But no,
Yeah.
I mean, and but they have the same interests,
Yeah.
they like the outdoors. They want to be a part of it. They want to make a difference. a positive difference. And then both Karen and I are pretty outgoing as far as speaking to people and things like that. And again, that's one of those things I don't think you teach your kid, they just learn it. And both of our boys are very outgoing. Easton's done some public, Warren's not a big public speaker necessarily, but Easton has spoken in front of Pope and Young and some other pretty big organizations, talking about exactly what we're talking about here, how to, instill that kind of stuff in his generation, and how to get their kids involved. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
It's something like I worry about a lot for some reason. Just the sorry, we got these flies floating around in here driving me nuts. But
we can't see them, so you're good.
Yeah, I know. But I don't know. When I had, I didn't think about it much until I had boys or kids, and I was just like, it's something that worries me, and it's something I almost think about every day is how I'm gonna pass this along to them, And then the reality is just like, dude, most people don't like it like we do, It's like there's so few people that actually like, as far as the population, like are obsessed with hunting like we are, if you want to say that.
Yep.
I think there will be a different side of hunting that will come with the, I guess, like the harvesting part of it. Kind of with all of the uptick in like homesteading and self-preservation and all of that, I think there'll be maybe more people hunting just for the meat avenue. And so that, I mean, in that sense, it may be fine, but the people like you guys that are,
there does seem
where
to be
it's your job and you guys are going after.
Yeah, that is one thing YouTube has done, is like that whole genre of homesteading and all that stuff is popular. And so maybe you're right. Maybe there's just more avenues for it to be introduced to people.
Well, we've seen that physically here in Iowa. And what I mean by that is, so the boys and I, Karen hasn't been up there for this particular event, but the state of Iowa has a program called Field to Fork.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What they offer is someone can come to this class, and I can't even tell you how many weeks it is. We started about 2 or 3 weeks ago, but every Tuesday night, they'll take up to 10 people. This is just in the Des Moines area. And I think they were trying to do some other satellite locations, but they started here. But anyhow, this is not for kids. This is adults. And they'll take 10 people, can just sign up and say they want to do this. And if they do this, then they give them a bow to use. They give them arrows to use. They give all this stuff. It's not theirs. They're not giving it to them to keep, but they have the opportunity to purchase it and stuff like that. They contacted us, said, will you guys come up and help mentor these people every Tuesday for the next 6-7 weeks? And then they got the state to actually open some parks that these people are allowed to come hunt on. Where normal people, the average hunter can't go there. Now they're does only in those areas, but you went the first year that they did it. And so anyhow, long story short though, the diversity of people, Maddie, that you just brought up is like, we had a guy that the only reason he was there, he's like, I need something to go with my mushrooms.
Right.
That was his comment the first night. I'm like, what's he talking about? He's like, yeah, I pick mushrooms. I mean, like, that's how he described, that's his hobby, was picking mushrooms, and he wanted meat to go with it.
Yeah.
And so he wanted to go do this. We have another gentleman that's in it right now that has 3 young kids. And he said, and my son was watching YouTube and he started talking about hunting, and I wasn't going to be able to teach him. So I decided I needed to learn how to go do this. So he signed up for this camp where he can, or this program, so he can come out and so he can teach his own kid. And there's a number of women that are doing the same thing. So I think you hit the nail on the head, Maddie, as far as there is a definite movement that isn't the traditional Josh and David way of getting into hunting. And they may never get into it to the degree we are.
Right.
But we'll also have to learn to accept those people, and that they're probably going to be the one that might be walking around in a sweatshirt and a pair of jeans.
Shooting a 2-year-old,
Yeah. It's going to happen.
And that's, I get on my soapbox with that a little bit. Like, boy, we are selfish as hunters sometimes. Like, we like to put our expectations on others pretty hard. And that's not something that needs to be, done in anything in life, really. I mean, but especially with hunting, because it's such a different experience than from person to person, and a different, just in reality, just different levels of this game. Like, there's different, some people, have a farm in Iowa, and some people live in, I don't know, public land in Michigan. Like it's just, it's hard to judge others on what they shoot or don't shoot. Yeah. Or they just want some venison to go with their mushrooms. You know, they don't care about what's on the top of their head.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, and I think that's another place where we resonated with the television show and still with our podcast today and with our sense and stuff is that Karen and I grew up in Virginia inside the Beltway. So when you talk about hunting public land in Michigan, that's what David grew up doing was I had to find a place to hunt, you know, like lots of the places, even back then, I might hunt it one year. And then the next year there was a housing development going in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, oh, this sucks. You know, I want to move. Well, then we moved to Arkansas and I learned what it was like to hunt the swamps down there and hunt water. And it was totally different. Got in the fire service. Karen points at Montana. We ended up moving to Montana. And so I learned to hunt whitetails out there along with elk and mule deer and everything else. And then the circle is almost complete. We end up back in Iowa. So I've lived in all these different diversities to hunt whitetails. And I've been successful in all of those places. But I think a lot of it came because of what I had to learn in Virginia, where it was really hard.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you didn't see very many deer. Everything was so, you really had to work at what you were doing. And now, like, I mean, I don't even know what the word is to describe what Iowa is. It's like a kid in a candy store, you know, I mean.
Yeah. Completely different world.
Yeah. So you wake up every day and you're like, okay, I don't know what I did to deserve this, but thank you, Lord. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
So,
well, that's what I made a comment a few weeks back. I've had some people from the East Coast on here that are just like, you know, they kill multiple bucks out there every year, and they're not 150s or bigger, you know, they're like 110 to 125 inch deer. But it's like, man, you absolutely have to love and be obsessed with deer hunting to do that out there every year. Like, cause it's not easy hunting out there. The terrains, you know, can be rough in some of those areas. And then, you know, you don't have this big giant rack that you're after. Like, that's cool. You know, it's just like, I think the people out east, like where you guys are from, they're the ones that are really passionate about deer hunting. It seems like to me. And a lot of people that are out in Iowa now came from those areas, like yourself, you know.
And those are some of the best hunters out there. I mean, they truly have had to figure out how to either they're hunting the urban areas, you know, and how to figure out, you know, she can vouch for there was a couple places that if there was a traffic jam, I wasn't going to see deer.
Yeah.
They couldn't get across the road, you know, and then other places that I hunted that were national forests, well, it was all trees. You know, and so there was no agriculture that you were working on. It was, you know, hunting saddles and things like that and figuring that kind of stuff out. So just completely different, you know.
It is. Yeah. Can I talk to you about mock scrapes for a little bit?
Oh boy.
Yeah.
All right. So I live in Southern Indiana, and we're blessed to have a lot of public land around here, and it's big public land, very, very hilly. You know, we have agriculture in Indiana, obviously, but the public land doesn't. And it's big enough to where, like, you know, some of the big deer are living on public, not on private or around here, just because it's so vast. And, you know, obviously you can't put out minerals or corn or anything, especially on public land. You're not supposed to in Indiana anyway, but, I have been tinkering around with mock scrapes just to get good pictures of deer, you know, in the vastness of the hills around here. And, I've had like mixed success with them. Like, and I was going to pick your brain about like, what do you think makes a good mock scrape and what do most people do wrong with them? And then I want you to pitch your scent too, sometime in there, David.
I was going to say, so the business side of me says, I'm supposed to tell you X, right? I'm supposed to tell you about raised scents and this is the ones that you need to have and all that. But I guess I'll back up because I was 6 or 7 years ago, 7 or 8 years ago, something like that. Meaning, okay, number one, I warded off all scents, wouldn't touch them. And that came from a horrible, disastrous event I had happen in Montana where a guy gave me elk paste, like a butter dish, right? that had elk urine, but it's in a paste form. And this guy and I'm telling him, look, I hike in 6 miles. I sleep there for 4 days. I go by myself. I don't want to pack that in. And he is so insistent. He's like, I'm telling you, it's going to make a huge difference. You're going to kill a big bull because of this stuff. I'm like, okay, fine. So I put it in a Ziploc bag, put that Ziploc bag in another Ziploc bag because I could smell this stuff. And I threw it in my pack and I hiked in. Well, back then, this is before there's all these energy bars and stuff like that. I get back, I get my camp off my back. I got about an hour before it gets dark. I want to go scout. I can smell this stuff. So I took the jar out and I set it over on a rock away from where I was going to be sleeping on the ground and everything. And I take off to go look for elk. I come back. It's dinner time now. Back then, because there isn't all these fancy foods, I would pre-make 12 to 15 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And that's what I ate breakfast, morning, lunch. That's what because it was high in protein and really good carbohydrates. I got everything I needed to keep going. Well, this stuff is reeking. I'm like, that urine is like, I know I moved it. So I got my flashlight and I look and it's 10 feet away. I'm like, why am I smelling this? What has happened is it being in my pack and all these peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, the urine in there is so strong, it permeated my jelly. So now it doesn't smell like elk urine. It tastes like elk urine.
Yeah.
And I'm 6 miles back. Maddie's about to throw up. And I'm like, I've got two choices here. I either hike out or I figure out a way to eat these sandwiches. So I'd hold my nose and choke these sandwiches down. Well, I never used that stuff. I threw it away right there, dumped everything out. I didn't want it anywhere near me. Fast forward 15 years later, a guy we're making a mock scrape, just like you're talking about, Josh. We're in a spot and I'm like, I want to try to get pictures and I don't have a place to put food here. So I'm just going to make this scrape. And he pulls out this little jar and I see it and I'm thinking, whoa, wait a minute, dude, don't even get that near me because I don't do sense at all. He says, but you don't understand. This is not deer urine. I said, I don't care what it is. I don't want it anywhere near me. And he says, no, seriously. And he popped the lid off and he said, just smell it. And he was close enough that I don't smell it. So I was like, okay. And I took a whiff and it wasn't very strong. And I was like, okay, well, that's better. And I'm saying, but why would that work on this? And he's like, it's glandular sense. And I was like, what's that mean? He said, well, I know what the glands are, like a tarsal gland, right? On the deer. Everyone cuts those off before they, as far as food goes, or you might save them and put them over a scrape or something like that. But he starts talking about the preorbital gland, the inside of the eye. And I had noticed that on deer before, that they rub that on a scrape or something like that. And so we got to talking about it and I said, all right, I'll try it. So I made 2 scrapes that day. I made one with the stuff that he had and I made one without. And I put the camera on a far end where it could see both. And lo and behold, it wasn't like a couple more deer went to that other scrape. Almost all of them went to that scrape. And I would only have 1 or 2 come to the one that I made. So then I was like, well, let me try this somewhere else. Maybe that's just a fluke. So I tried it again. Same thing happened. Tried it again. Now I start buying this stuff. Now I'm going to start using it, start implementing it into putting it on scrapes. That worked. Next thing we know, I was like, okay, I want to talk to someone because I want to start looking at other things. I started filming the deer rather than taking photos of them with a trail camera so I could see how they were interacting. Started noticing they're not just using their eye, they're using their nose, their mouth, their forehead. Okay, these deer are really like, and the day it really hit me was when I noticed a deer not rubbing a tree. And what I mean by that, he came up and he ducked his head and he's licking the tree. And then he slides his eye on there and he worked that on there for a few seconds, puts his forehead on there, but never touched his actual antlers to the tree, just pushing his forehead on there. I was like, why did he just do all this? And then it wasn't an hour later, another deer is there and another deer, and they're all bucks. And so all of a sudden I was like, well, we're on to something here. And so I started working with someone about developing some other glands to utilize this way. So what I would tell you is that what we have come up with is a way to communicate with whitetail deer. And it's not something that we developed, but we did start putting it all together. And we are now really showing people, hey, and what I tell everyone is don't listen to me. I'll show you the videos. You make the determination of what you think. Because we have one called Scrape King, which is straight preorbital from a buck. And if you put that on the limbs above a scrape and you make your scrape and you don't overdo it, you will have more bucks come there than you've ever had come to your scrapes. And then the other one is buck junkie. That's another multiple buck. We have different ones that are just does, just bucks, but buck junkie is all the glands in the head of a whitetail deer. And same thing, that forehead becomes highly prevalent on these deer. We've got people right now that are putting our scents out and sending us videos back going, I can't believe this. It was 2 hours after I walked away and here's a buck. And some of them are big bucks. Some of them are young bucks. I mean, you get all kinds of responses, but I would tell you to start looking at glandular scents. If you're using urine, I'm not telling you to stop, but I don't use any urine-based scents in my scrapes. I won't use any kind of urine-based anything until we get like into the rut where you're actually trying to get a buck to track something, because urine is basically just a scent molecule that they're following, where the glands, even though they're derived by scent, there's a communication. They can tell how old a deer is. They can tell whether that deer is healthy. They can tell whether that deer is a buck or a doe. They can tell whether that deer is coming into estrus or not, all from that gland. And so they're just there's just a whole lot more information that we haven't even discovered yet, that I think we're just learning what we're capable of doing. But the results we're getting are they're off the chart. I mean, it's changed the way I whitetail hunt 100%.
Yeah. Kind of questions you got about mock scrapes, Maddie?
None.
Where do you recommend putting a mock scrape? I mean, I'm always thinking like when I put one out, it's always like, okay, would they want to scrape here for some reason?
Right.
And it's just not a good setup for them, to utilize a scrape.
Well, to some extent, the deer will tell you where they want them. Like they'll make one. Maybe field edges are probably the number one place where people put scrapes. The problem is that when you utilize one of their scrapes, then they're dictating where that scrape is going to be. So if I find that, and let's say that's 50 yards from my tree stand, I'll demolish their scrape. I'll throw sticks in it and all kinds of stuff where they can't get it out of there, and move the scrape down by where it is by near my stand, or if I could, I would set up a stand or a blind near that scrape possibly. So sometimes we utilize what they do. We learn what they're looking for. Obviously, you can't just go throw a scrape anywhere and expect the deer to show up. So you got to have some scouting ability, some knowledge of where the deer are going to be go to and from. But that's what I would say. We don't do a lot of scrapes like in bedding areas, but on the fringes of bedding areas can be scrapes that you will capture those deer coming there more frequently in daylight hours or right before dark, as opposed to waiting till they get to that food source that they're going to walk the edge of. A lot of times it's dark by the time they get there. So we'll back ours off and move into the timber some and things like that. So, but core area, like if you're talking about big timbered areas, I really like saddles. I like flats that, like a natural flat on a ridge, things like that. Look for old rubs. That old rubs are not, I never used to hunt rub trees, period. And I still don't, unless I put that rub tree in. And what we started doing is employing white pines. We drop a white pine in, we scar it up. So we've made a rub, and then we put some of our forehead and salivary scent on that and watch these bucks show up and start taking over that tree. And it is unbelievably, to this, I will say this, if we continue to show people how well it is, I do think that eventually we're going to work ourselves out of a job, because the state is going to see it and say, hey, we're not going to let you do that anymore. It's not fair. It's kind of like using a turkey decoy.
Yeah. Oh, we don't get started on that with everybody.
Yeah, that's a different subject.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've been trying to utilize them more on public land where, like in the hills here, like the wind is such a problem in the big hills, to where deer like to drop down on these hubs a lot, like where, lots of ridges come down into a low area and travel out. And there's almost always a scrape right there, but it's like nearly impossible to hunt right there because the wind blows 7 different directions. Yeah. Right. Throughout the evening. So I've been trying to let me take some milkweed or something and let's back out of here until I feel like here I can hunt here if the wind was coming out of the east or whatever the case may be. And then try to set up a scrape there if there's not one, a good place for them to scrape right there, to where, okay, maybe he'll, come out of there and the first thing he'll want to do is come to this scrape, and I'll be here waiting for him. But, this is still me in figuring this thing out mode. But
well,
anyway.
I hate to tell you this, but you're going to still be doing that when you're 70.
Yeah, I know. That's why it's
figure
fun.
it out. So,
Yeah.
But yeah, so exactly what you're talking about, that their scrape would kind of give me an indication they're here, but I'm going to try to pull them 50 yards or something where the wind is better or what, you know, and that's where I think our sense can really, really help, because one, we make the one Scrape King in 2 different formats. One's a spray. Most of them come in a spray.
Okay.
And the spray is designed that way because it atomizes and it gets the scent out really quickly and it goes a long ways. But then we also make the Scrape King in a paste, so that when you slide it on a limb and it leaves like some lubricant on there, it will be there even if you get a rain. So if you're hunting public land, you don't want to go in there, like you're not coming to again till next weekend. That scrape will hopefully still be going because of by putting that paste on there as well as the spray. So then there's more, and then we've got a bunch of videos on YouTube. We got a bunch of videos on our website that show which ones we're using and how. Now there's no law. I can tell you, Easton and I could have the same sense in our hands, and he's going to do it a little bit different than I am. Someone else is going to do it a little bit different. Someone lives somewhere here. You just find, but for the most part, I have a certain way that I like to put my scents on there. And then we sell a natural hemp rope now, and that all comes in a bundle that someone can buy, the hemp rope and the scents that come with it. And yeah, and then we also have a scrape rake for actually working up that tree so that you don't touch it or anything like that. I used to use just a knife, and now we've got a rake that's designed for that and making the scrape in the ground and stuff like that.
I was just getting ready to ask you about the ropes and what kind you like.
Well, I can tell you this. We came out with a rope a couple of years ago, and we quit selling it within about a month. And that was simply because we found out from our own personal experience that the deer were avoiding it. And at first we were like, something's wrong with our scents. And later on we figured out it's the rope. And so if you're not using a natural hemp rope, and a lot of them out there are like 90%, but then they use a couple different variations, you could get some adverse responses even when you got the right scent on there because they don't like the rope. So we finally now have a 100% all hemp rope. And this year our scents and those ropes, we are getting crazy amounts of video back from people saying, check this out, watch these deer. And they're freaking out on there. And I truly believe our scents are working, but the hemp rope is a big key to that. Yeah.
Well, I've been messing with those too, trying to figure out, some of them have them, some of them don't. So I'm in the stage you were, whatever, a handful of years ago with it all. I'm just trying to figure out if it's for me or not, but I like it so far. I mean, I love it. It's such a good way of getting pictures.
Absolutely.
Okay. The Hunting Factor had a question for you, David. He said, how often would you freshen up the scrape?
Right. He said scrap, but I get what he's going at. So, mine are about once a week, and I do that because I still don't run cellular cameras. I'm still the SD card guy,
All right. I like you. I like that.
I own 2 of them because they're on farms meaning 2 cameras is all that are cellular. And I don't even have them responding to me. Warren gets the pictures and tells me what he sees down there.
Yeah.
But anyhow, the only reason I have those is because they're on farms that are far away. But other than that, I still, out of all the farms that we do hunt, so what happens is about every 7 to 10 days, I'm trying to check those scrapes. I might check it slightly earlier as we get closer into hunting season, because I don't want to miss that opportunity. If I got a buck coming, I want to know he's coming there, and I got to check it to see. But I don't hesitate to go back in and check them. Our scents, though, will last longer than that. You don't necessarily need to check them as far as refreshing the scrape. You could probably get away with anywhere from 2 weeks on our sprays, and you can probably get away with a month on the paste. I've gone back a month even after getting some torrential rains, and still been able to see some paste on the limbs, which told me the scent was still there.
Yeah. I had another question in my head, and I can't remember what it is, but I'll ask you this and I'll think of it. Bill was asking if it's a synthetic or a natural.
So all of ours are all natural. We don't offer a synthetic at this time. We've looked at it. The problem is even the people that are making the synthetics, everyone will tell you you're probably only looking about a 20 to 30% as effective as a real scent. So unfortunately, there are some states where you can't use a real scent anymore, although we're hoping we're going to see some changes in that, because I think some CWD arguments are coming out, and think that's been the big premise for not glandular scents or natural scents. So it's been a reason to stop baiting and things like that, is they didn't want to congregate the deer. Well, there's been some new light on some of that stuff that maybe that's really not having much effect on it. So ours is 100% all natural. All of our glands come off of a true whitetail deer, whether that be from this state or that state. That varies on where we get our glands from, but all of it's 100% natural.
Yeah. Why don't you use cell cameras?
I think I don't want to go too far. I'm not going to sit and tell people they shouldn't use them, but I feel like I'm that old school guy, and I don't want to. I still like that. I want a camera for one reason only. I want to know that deer exists. I never want to see a picture and then go get in a tree. I don't want to say, okay, he was going this way. I don't put 3 or 4 cameras in an area to see which way he was walking. I just want to know they exist. And then I want to use my own skills, like Karen was talking about earlier on the communicating with them. I want to beat them at their own game. That's the other day we were driving to Montana and we're looking for something to listen to on the radio. And we found this, it wasn't Daniel Boone. I can't remember who it was about, but it was about the old trappers and like in the 1800s, and he was just talking about the art of hunting and how it's being lost and all these things. And she goes, they must have just been talking about you the whole time, I guess, because I just love it. And so I feel like the cellular camera gives me too much of an edge.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to go there, and so I just choose not to do it myself. I'm not knocking the states that allow it or people that use them, not at all. Because my boys use them, but I don't.
I quit using them this year. I have 2 out right now and they're in Kansas because I'm a long way from Kansas,
Yeah.
The data you get is kind of like, it's almost like it's $1 short and a minute too late. Like, and then we get caught up in this thing of like, you're just like, okay, my cell camera told me there's a buck there. There's a buck there last night, so I got to go hunt there. And it's like, yeah, he could be anywhere right now. You need to go off of what you know from your scouting and from maybe past data that you have from cameras or whatever. And too many people get caught up in that, like, oh dang, I haven't had a buck on camera in 3 days, in daylight. And it's like, yeah, man, them deer are smart. And if you got him on camera in daylight 3 days ago, he's probably somewhere pretty close, still. They know how to avoid stuff.
Now we're having a discussion because Easton and me and Easton both believe that there are some deer out there that do not like cellular cameras. They know that a cellular camera is there.
David, I on public land this year, I hung a regular card camera. I use pretty much only regular cards on public land camera over this scrape. Well, a guy that lives in town here, we didn't know each other at the time, but he hung a cell camera up. I almost said the brand, but he hung a cell camera up over the same scrape. He didn't see my camera, and we ended up meeting each other in the parking lot there, and we got to be kind of friends. So we were sharing information, and he would send me when he would get a picture of a big buck on that camera. And I bet I got on my regular SD card camera when I went and checked it. I bet I got, and there's no reason that he would have been like, he wasn't hunting there anymore. He was done for the year. And I bet I got 80% more deer on my camera, on my cell cam or my trail camera, regular card camera in them. I think with some of the stuff with for one, I don't know if they missed some stuff because of their transferring data. And then I don't know if the deer can just like sense the
signal. Yeah,
because we'll have cameras in the same area where one will be a SD card camera that we just have over a scrape, and then we'll put those, cell cameras in the areas that we think are good. And like, you go check the SD card camera and there's big bucks on it. And we never got a big buck on the cell camera the whole time, all season long. And
He came from not a trial and error on purpose. He had a scrape that this buck was coming to, and it was a regular camera, and he's getting pictures of it. And then he changed it to a cell cam because he wanted to know, I want to get pictures of him and I'll know when he's there. He got one video of that. And again, we run video most of the time, not pictures. And so the deer comes in, he'd come in and work the scrape numerous times, but he comes in this time, he looks right at the camera and turns around and runs off. And Easton was like, what was up with that? So again, the first thing Easton thought is he didn't like our scents. Well, the deer never came back to the scrape again. Yeah. So he had this happen again with another deer in the same general vicinity. So we started, he tells me about it. And I told him a story about Will Primos one time talking about cameras. Could it have been the camera? He says, I don't know. So he switched, made another scrape, put the SD card camera back on it. Buck was back on the scrape within 12 hours. And he was like, okay, hold on. And again, I don't know whether it's the frequency, whether it's a clicking noise in a cell cam. I don't know what it is, but there is something that some of them, and I can't speak for all brands. We've only used 2 that I know of. But I do believe that there are some deer, and I'm not going to sit here and say it's all big bucks, because if there was a doe, you wouldn't pay any attention to it as all.
Right.
But she could be avoiding it just like he is.
Yeah.
And so Easton was, after last year, he's like, there's something to this, and so
I agree.
Yeah.
We had this aha moment last year. Me and a buddy, we had like, this was a really good area that we scouted out. It's probably maybe an 800-acre piece, this area. And we put 3 cell cameras in it, and we put 3 or 4 regular SD card cameras. And we were just super disappointed. Like nothing was on those cell cameras. We didn't even hunt the place all year just because we're like, well, it must have been, I don't know, maybe someone's hunting it or, it got blown out. We went and pulled them cameras and checked the SD card cameras, and all those big bucks that we found a shed. They were all there. And they did not ever one time walk in front of the cell cameras. And so we were just like, that's weird. You'd think one of them would show up on the cell camera, but they didn't.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. So this year I've kind of been like, I'm just going to, especially on public land, there's enough stuff fiddling with them on the public land. I'm going to give it a break. Plus there's just so many of them out there now. Every scrape has a cell camera on it just because they're $30 at Walmart now, So, all right. Anyways, I'll get off my soapbox about that. So you got your guys's sense, and is there anything else you guys wanted? I put your guys' website down below in your YouTube channel. Where else could everybody else find you? I've been on here for about an hour and a half, so I don't want to keep you guys too long.
So anywhere, social media is probably the best way to reach us if someone just has questions or things like that. We have, that's the easiest way, but the website is, if they have questions about products and things like that, go to the website, because we do a really good job of showcasing everything on there as well as we can and things like that. But we're kind of everywhere. And then Karen and I are both doing some speaking engagement stuff. So if someone's looking for something out there that they want someone to speak at a church or whatever, we do a bunch of that. And then the last one that Karen should mention is the Rise, that she's doing stuff specifically for women. So I'll let her talk about it.
So Rise Ministries was created a few years ago to be a specific place for women to learn hunting skills. We started off with doing archery camps, and then that moved into where we do a pheasant hunt. We've done the pheasant hunt every year. But now it has grown to where it's not just hunting, it's outdoor activities with a main focus of getting ladies out of their comfort zone, helping empower them, build confidence, help them experience nature, but also grow in Christ. And so the main focus there is having a message that goes along with each of these events. So it's called Rise Ministries, and Rise means reach, inspire, support, and empower. And that website is KarenHolder.com. And so there's information, the whole thing, you know, everything that we do
Yeah.
and the events that we do. We just did a horseback riding event 2 weeks ago. That was fantastic. We had 10 ladies that came, and you know, half of them, more than half of them, didn't have a horse, but they just wanted to come and ride. And our focus there was communication versus connection, and that again goes with, you know, that we communicate so much today with technology and phones and computers and all of this stuff, but are we really connected to one another? You know, and connecting is more of connecting on a belief system and a spiritual aspect. And so working with horses, they're a sentient animal. So a horse can feel your heartbeat from, you know, like 8 feet away. It can mirror your feelings. It knows what you are. I don't want to say it knows what you're feeling. It picks up. It's the energy thing. It's just like the deer picking up the energy from the cell cam. Horses are the same way. They pick up your energy, whether it's positive or negative, and they reflect that back to you. So we use things like that, everyday life principles, basically, and incorporate Christ in there. And what does our Lord and Savior say about this? Because he's our master, and we need to follow him first before we do anything else. And so this is just a way to get ladies out doing something fun, stretch them out of their comfort zone, do some study, and have a community of ladies that are like-minded.
Yeah,
That's great.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Like, we need so much more of that in this world right now too. And it's like, we have, I know I've said it 100 times on here, but you know, we have this phone in front of us and we can spend hours on it a day, but like to sit down for an hour to read your Bible or talk to someone about God, it's like a big burden to some people, or just to everybody. You know, it's like something we don't want to do, but it's like, you can make time to do it, you know, just to get off this thing and be more connected to your spiritual journey and helping others with that. So appreciate that from you guys for sure.
Yeah. So that's at KarenHolder.com is the website. And then through social media, if you just search Karen Holder, there's my Facebook page, and then there's a Rise Ministries group. So that's where we can have discussion and stuff.
But if there's dudes out there and they forget, just go to Raised Hunting and ask us the question, hey, how do I get in touch with Karen about going on that, sending my wife on that pheasant hunt or riding and stuff? Because, I mean, I can tell you that, I mean, that's something that I guess when you talk about generational, and I know we're trying to get wrapped up here, Josh, but talk about generational. I was one of those guys that really believed I wanted her to be part of my hunts. I didn't want to be the guy that went hunting and came home and then, hey, will you cook this? I want her to be there and be part of that. And so we have lived that, and our boys have gotten to see that. And now that's what Karen is doing with this is you'll see a lot of guys will reach out to us and say, hey, I'd like to send my wife. I think she would really enjoy this. And so she gets a lot of women involved that maybe they didn't choose to come right away. Their husband was like, hey, I saw this because of who we reach. You know, we're talking about mock scrape. Someone's listening. Next thing you know, their wife is coming to a camp, you know, and that's that dripping thing that we're talking about. We never know who we're going to run into. And she just wants to reach as many as she can and do the best job she can. So,
But our events, we have a couple of big events, but the hunting events and stuff are smaller intentionally. Because, you know, you have a smaller group, you can get to know each other better, more intimacy, just makes things a little bit more transformational. So.
For sure.
Are all those events right now, are they all in Iowa around where you guys are located?
No, so some of them are in Iowa. Our pheasant hunt coming up is in Nebraska. So that's the next, that's in October. But that Iowa, Nebraska, we've done some things in Wisconsin. But no, we're open to go different places. But right now, that's where we are.
Nice.
Might have to do a squirrel hunt with squirrel dogs. You know,
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Give me a year here, David. I don't want to. Let me make sure I know what I'm doing here. But,
right.
before I bring anybody with me and be yelling at my dog or something, I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, Maddie's been hunting with me since. When did you kill your first deer? 16 or 17?
I don't know when I killed my first, but I started sitting with you. I mean, whatever. I was probably 15 or 16
Yeah,
when we
we've been
started
together a long
dating.
time.
So,
But yeah, it's and she was hunting quite a bit there. Once we had the boys, it's getting a little harder for her to go, just because I think she would rather be with them, which is,
until they can come
admirable.
along. Yeah.
So, but we've been trying to shoot her bow. We're having some bow issues with her bow, but she's trying to get back into it this year. Now that they're a little older too, and can go to Mimi's house for more than a couple hours,
One of the coolest things is as they get older, that I found was that, spending time with my boys out in the outdoors and doing what they were doing, we'll go back to that connection word. It created a connection and a bond with their mom and their boys, like no other. I mean, you're spending 8 hours or 10 hours in a tree stand with them. And,
I got a dog that I can hear him whining at the door.
Yeah, all good.
Give me a second. I'm going to let him out.
Yeah. There's nothing like, spending that time with them and, sharing in the victories and disappointments, because you're both in the same tree together. At least that's with us because of the filming. We were always together. None of us we haven't hunted alone for 20 some years now. And so that's always been, I know Warren went hunting by himself one day and he was like, that wasn't any fun at all.
Yeah, that's funny.
So anyway, it's definitely great to be able to spend time with them out there.
Yeah. We actually went on a trip to Montana. It'd be a couple years ago now, just like a road trip, but our oldest was about 2.5. And I remember, like, you think taking a kid that young, they're not going to appreciate it, but just listening to him talk when we would do hikes like through the mountains. It was my favorite part. I still remember that's beautiful. And he'd just be like, this is amazing. And he's talking about like a cactus, it was so sweet. So it's same thing, just like getting them in the quiet and just listening to what's on their mind. I love it so much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So,
no.
Well, thank you guys for having us.
Yeah. Thanks for hopping on. And everybody make sure you go and I'll link all that stuff in the description and go over there and check all that out, and appreciate what you guys are doing for the hunting community.
Yeah. And you've got my number and stuff, Josh. So if you got questions about scrapes, reach out. If some of your, some of your subscribers and stuff have other questions, shoot us messages, because we still answer all that stuff ourselves. They're doing that for us. So that's what we're here to do, is help. Whether
David, maybe sometime in the future, me and you can just get on here and just talk about deer hunting for an hour and a half.
Let me know.
Because I've got a million things in my head to ask you. But all right,
we do it. We love to talk hunting. So
Maddie,
all right, everybody.
Nice meeting you too. Nice meeting you.
Yep. Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks everybody for listening. Bye.
Thank you, bud.
Bye-bye.
See ya.